Good evening, dear students. Today I am coming with a topic that is Mrtp Act 1969, Monopolies and Restrictive Trade Practices Act 1969. So we know that during 1960s, most of the Indian population were living in the rural areas. Basically, they are engaged themselves. They were engaged themselves in the agricultural sectors. The purchasing capacity of these sections of the society were very low at the time. They could not afford some commodities of the industrial sectors. They could not afford transportation. So they could not engage themselves in the sectors like business, service, trade industries like that. But at that time, some sections of the society used to engage themselves in service sectors, business, trades, industries, etc., etc. So those who were engaged in business, trades, industries like that, they tried to capture all the economic activities by controlling the supply of goods and services as well as by determining the level of prices at the time. So they use their monopoly power. They use their monopoly power to control the economy and enjoyed the economic power within themselves. So that is why it was observed that inequalities during this period were very high. Economic inequalities were there, and it becomes a very critical agenda for the government of India to allocate the resources in an efficient way. But allocation of resources due to the practice of monopoly power by these sections of the society was difficult for the government. So that is why at that time the government of India had decided to enact an act so that the monopolies and restrictive trade practices can be controlled. And the government of India had enacted the act, and that is Monopolies and Restrictive Trade Practices in 1969. So before entering into this topic, I just like to share some of the questions that were coming in the competitive examinations. So to get the answers of this question, kindly see the full video. First, about the Mrtp Act. Actually, the Mrtp Act came into force from June 1st, 1970, but it was passed in the Parliament of India in 18 December 1969 and got precedence assigned in December 27, 1969. So these informations relating to the implementation of these schemes and the year of that it was passed by the Parliament was very important so far as competitive exams are concerned. So the aims and objective of the Mrtp Act. Basically, the Mrtp Act tried to control the monopoly powers that were practiced by some sections or few sections of the society at that time, and to maximize welfare in the society. One of the some of the objectives of this act are: the first one, to ensure that the operation of the economic system does not result in the concentration of economic power in the hands of few rich. So the Mrtp Act tried to ensure that the economic system should not like that provide the powers or the benefits from the system to some sections of the society. The benefit of the economic system should be flow to all sections of the society. That should be inclusive. So that is why the first objective is to ensure that the operation of economic system does not result in the concentration of economic power in the hands of few. The next one, to provide for the control of monopolies. Monopolies is always considered as one of the bad practice by some sections of the society that reduces the economic efficiency in an economy. So that is why control of monopolies become very important. If there is monopolies, then the resources will not be allocated properly among different sections of the society, and there will not be any kind of inclusiveness in the market. The next one is to prohibit monopolistic and restrictive trade practices. So far as monopolistic and restrictive trade practices are concerned, we'll discuss this issue in the later part of this video. First, the Mrtp Act will not be applicable to all the companies. Some of the companies will not come under the purview of Mrtp Act. Under the purview of Mrtp Act. The first, government company and undertaking owned by the government. Next, company established by central or state act. Trade unions, companies which have been taken over the central government, companies owned by registered cooperative societies, any financial institutions. These companies will not come under the purview of Mrtp Act. So, definition of monopolistic trade practices. So we know that monopolistic trade practices and unfair trade practices is very harmful for the economy as a whole. So now we need to know what is monopolistic trade practices according to Mrtp Act 1969. The first, the Act defines the monopolistic trade practice as such practice indicates misuse of one's power to abuse the market in terms of production and sales of goods and services. Firms involved in monopolistic trade practice tries to eliminate competition from market. If there is more competition in a market, then the consumers will get justice from that market because it will increase their bargaining capacities in a market. If there is no competition, there is less bargaining power. And so far as bargaining power is concerned, it is very useful to maximize the utility of the consumers. Next, then they take advantage of their monopoly and sends unreasonably high prices. So high prices is always dangerous from the side of the consumers, because if the industrialist or the businessman or like that impose more prices on their products, then very few sections of the society can able to use that products. But some sections of the society will be left to enjoy or from the use of the products produced by the monopolist. So it will not provide justification to that sections of the society. And the next, they also deteriorate the product quality, limit technical development, prevent competition, and adopt unfair trade practices. Now, definition of unfair trade practice. Unfair trade practice are those practices that include misleading advertisement of goods and services, representing second-hand goods as the new one, misleading representation regarding usefulness, need, quality, standard, style, etc. of goods and services, false claims or representation regarding price of goods and services, giving false facts regarding sponsorship, affiliation, etc. of goods and services, giving false guarantee or warranty on goods and services without adequate text. So these are come under the unfair trade practice, and from this we come to know the bad impact of monopolistic trade practices as well as unfair trade practices. So through this Mrtp Act 1969, the government decided to control these practices which were considered or are considered as harmful for the society as a whole. Next, definition of restrictive trade practices. Sometimes what happens, the capitalists have more capital with themselves. From the power of their capitals, by using their capitals, they try to block all the capitals that flow into production, tend to block the flow of capital into production, as a result of which it has bad impact on production and distribution too. So from monopolistic trade practices, unfair trade practices, and restrictive trade practices, we come to know that if these practices exist in the economy, then the market will not be a successful one. If these practices exist in the economy, then there will be definitely market failure. Less production as per demand, that means less supply as per demand, and high prices always lead to market failure and in an economy, and that is why the economy will not get efficiency as well as inclusiveness in the process of development. So under or through Mrtp Act, it was tried to control monopolistic trade practices, unfair trade practices, as well as restrictive trade practices in an economy. So now, what is Mrtp company? So during the beginning of the Mrtp Act, it was considered that those industries who have possessed their assets about rupees 25 crore, they will be included under Mrtp companies. But later on, it was changed. It was later relaxed to rupees 50 crores in 1980s, 100 crore in 1985, and in 1991. This limit was removed. Now, only companies having more than 25% market share were called the monopolies. Next, the current status of Mrtp. This act is not in force in India currently, as it was replaced by the Competition Act 2002 with effect from September 1, 2009. The Mrtp Commission was replaced by Competition Commission of India. So in the beginning of this class, I have put it 3 questions. One question come in the UPSC 2014 mains, and another 2 were related to UGC NET. So hope you have got the answers of the questions. However, so far as the impact of Mrtp Act on Indian economy is concerned, I will develop another video. So kindly stay connected, and if you have any doubts regarding this act, or if you have any queries, then kindly put in the comment box. I will try to develop, or I will try to answer your questions in the next class. Thank you.